Hello everyone, I guys, hopefully you're having a wonderful day. We are back again with another Fanatics Weekly Review where I go through the top 100 soccer items auctioned off this week over on their website. As always, if you enjoy these weeklies, do make sure to leave a like, I'd appreciate it greatly. But with that said, let's go ahead and drop on by the site. This week, starting out at $110 here, we have a Sergio Aguero 2017 Chrome out of 99 green. That went for $110. Felt to me like a pretty good price for an Aguero card that obviously is from a relatively collectible set with 2017 Chrome, but Aguero himself, not the biggest shining star of the hobby, sort of a forgotten yesteryear player that sort of faded out as the hobby started sort of gaining steam. I thought that there was a surprisingly low sale compared to it. I think that this is probably high. The other sale may be low. Who knows? But we'll see that here in a second. Lamine Yamal Black Label goes for $112 there from the Euro win in 2024. We have a TTT 1965 Beckenbauer and a 1 that does a $112, which, to me, or if you're trying to get into an entry TTT, seems like a decent price. Also, really nice eye appeal here on this one. I mean, good colors, nice green, no real outside borders. Usually there's something else peeking in from another card, but looks really good. The back, I mean, you can tell it's removed, no doubt, but generally pretty stunning for a 1, so I think if you pick that up, probably a good one if that's going into a PC. Above that, 1950 Bolliger, that here goes in a PSA 1 for $112. Not sure on the player, to be honest, but I do know that this set in particular, really hard to find, so if you're trying to find a player within this set, if you can pick it up and get it for what you feel is a decent price, feels like a decent thing to do in regard to that. I've only seen a few of these, and maybe 1 or 2 max for each player that I've sort of seen. So beyond that, Lewandowski 2016 Field Level goes for $112 and a PSA 10. You got a Tom Finney here from 1948 that goes for $120 and an SEC 25. We got a PSA 1 Estrellas Ronaldo. It goes for $126 right above that, along with a VVD auto out of 25 for $126 with an Iniesta auto from 2017 Chrome for $126 as well. In the row above that, this is a more in a PSA 5, goes for $132. I think I looked at that just because I was curious, and I did indeed. So this was the highest sale out of any of them, although it is the highest grade as well, a PSA 5 compared to a prior, which we had a 3 for $43. And an authentic altered for $27, an authentic in there as well for $46, and then $13. So the highest price and a decent multiple for the grading premium as well. So not too shabby there. You got a Titularis Garincha, 1958, and a 3 that goes for $132. Along with the Kevon Sullivan and Lionel Messi, just 2 goats chilling there on the tops now. Goes for $132 out of 99. Feels like a strong price for Kevon Sullivan, but sort of reminds me of the Freddie Adu Cristiano Ronaldo card. I believe that was 2004. I could be wrong on that one, but has some, sort of reminiscent factors of yesteryear. Not to say that Kevon Sullivan will be as big of a flop, obviously you never know, but he's sort of the next big thing in American soccer, at least for the moment. Above that, your choice of sticker autos here. Jude Auto from 2022 Deco. Next to we have a 2023 Ruud van Nistelrooy PSA 10, along with a Bradley Barkalow that tops the row at 144. Above that, you have a Savio rookie out of 75 from Merlin Chrome, PSA 10 for $144. You have the Seedorf rookie, PSA 8 for $150. Notably only 12 watchers, which is interesting, considering it was a fairly good deal as well compared to some of the prior sales. So, yeah, what was that? I believe a PSA 8 for $150. Indeed, if we look back, a 6 went for $126 in November, a 7 for $168. Last time we saw 9 was in June of last year, and that went for $750, so this seems like a pretty good deal, or maybe a bad sign for some of the other ones. Hard to really tell. Need some more time to see that play out. This was the Griezmann that I was sort of referencing earlier. I thought this sold relatively low compared to the Aguero, although I think the Aguero probably just sold high, but apparently this Griezmann wasn't even that bad, because it is a pop 1 of 2. The Chrome 2017s do grade fairly well in 10s, and the last 10 sold for like $250. Granted, you're probably not going to get a huge premium when most of them grade 10s, but only a 0.6x, a nice little 60-70% boost for a PSA 10 compared to a 9. I think most people would take that. Row above that, you got some rarer releases from Vintage, or at least things you don't see all too often. This is a Kubala from 55 Chocolates that goes in a PSA 2 for $150. Next to it, you have a 1961 Pele Pentagonal from the Mexican set that we've seen a lot of these come from lately. You've seen one of about all of them, I'd say, at this point. This one goes for $150. And then finally, a Hocus Pocus Pushkas that went for $156. Didn't look that one up, or at least I didn't keep it up to show you, but this actually did sell a couple years ago, same exact copy for like $190, which was fairly surprising for it to dip, because as we'll come to see, a lot of things are going up, and for this not to have also sold at all in any other copies for almost 2 years and to have gone down in price is sort of surprising. Beyond that, we have a Roberto Carlos PSA 5 that I did look up, as we just sort of saw there a second ago. This 5 went for, what was it, like 160? Yeah, 168, so this a 4 prior had gone for 80, a 3 had gone for 65, a 1 for 40. Don't really see many comparables. I guess a 6 back here did 126 a year and a half ago. It's kind of surprising that these aren't selling all that often. Again, back during the boom in like 2022, you were seeing these basically in every weekly. And nowadays, probably just doesn't make as much sense at these lower prices to buy out of Brazil, grade them, get a med grade, and then sell it for nothing relative to all the costs that are involved in it. So interesting to see that. It goes for 168, which seems like an okay price, at least compared to recent comps. Along with that, you have a Beckham auto for 168. Again, just like to remind people, the Beckham autos, whenever they first started coming out, were just crazily priced, like $500 plus, maybe $1,000 at times, depending on what it was. Now you can get one for 160. And then beyond that, Cristiano Ronaldo BGS 8. Really love the sticker. Don't have one personally, but one of my favorite from 2003 for Ronaldo. This is a BGS 8, which, make of it what you will. Stickers and BGS slabs, sort of iffy, but nonetheless. Moving beyond that, on to page 3 here, we start with a couple Jamez's, a Kaboom, along with a Topps Chrome Gold out of 50. PSA 10, both go for basically the same exact price. Interestingly enough, the Kaboom does have more watchers, but Kabooms obviously have quite the following, even cross sport, I would say. Beyond that, Martin Odegaard from 2016 auto for 186. Above that, you got a couple Messis. Sorry, one Messi. This is a Putellas that goes for 198. The Messi PSA 10 goes for 192. Along with a Garnacho. The Wonder Kid himself goes for 210 there in a PSA 10. Above that, a decent choice of vintage here, a 1922 ladies team photo that goes for 210. You have the sort of half Pele here from the supplement Titolare set that goes for 216 and a 1. And then I did not win this. However, I didn't go super hard at it. It was something that if I could get it, I'd take it. And this is a Borgi, although I do think it's someone else. I'm not exactly sure who it is. I didn't look that up last night. Usually when I'm very focused on them, I will. This was already really high price going into the weekly, so I didn't take too much of a stab at it. But the 1950 Americana set, really hard to find. A nice World Cup set as well. And with vintage USMNT stuff, you don't really have many options at all. There's barely anything. So congrats to the winner. I think it was probably a fair price. This is around what these have gone for lately. Up here, a silver Mbappe and a 9.5 from 2018 going for 240. Obviously, if you know the history of the 2018 Mbappe Prisms, that's a low price comparatively. And, just interesting to see, generally speaking. Next to that, I always say that these 2020 PSA 10s are kind of overpriced, or at least seem like it to me, just because I see so many of them. They're clearly out there. I have a few just sitting around that someone sent me as like a, fun thank you sort of package. And, they're pretty plentiful, but they do look nice. But, when you put it next to a second-year BIS and a PSA 8, it sort of exemplifies what I'm thinking. I think that, personally, I'd rather have the PSA 8 BIS every single day of the week. But I can understand why people are sort of allured to this 2020 release. Nonetheless, I think this is a good example of what I'm talking about. Above that, 2006 PSA 8 for 250, so take your pick between those Messis there. The Mega Cracks does have the most watchers, which I think is somewhat of an indicator of something. You can see the relative demand that there is. Beyond that, a Pulisic auto from 2018 Immaculate. This was relatively low, but it is a PSA 8 with an 8 auto. It goes off the top and bottom of the sticker, so I think that's why it does a lower price. Really cool patch, though. I don't know if it's game worn, which I guess, worth checking. I don't believe it is, but you never really know. Oh, it is match worn, so yeah, that's, pretty cool comparatively, I would say. You have a Merlin Shooting Stars Bergkamp here in an 8.5 for 264. Looked that one up as we have it right here. And really not a super strong price, if we're being honest. I guess the last 8 did 174. The last 9 did, 1,100. So it's definitely closer to an 8 than it is a 9. But these have dropped a little bit. The last 8 before that sold for 504. Kind of makes this 8 look like a decent price, since one had only sold. Basically none of these have sold. I guess an 8 or a 9 grade over the last year. You've seen, since May of last year, only one other sale. So, If you're in the market for it, I don't think that that's a bad one. However, I will say again, 12 watchers, so that's something of note. Above that, George Best from 68 and BC 5 goes for 264. You have another Beckham auto here that goes for 264 in a 10-10 grade, along with a RS McCole. I am not sure at all on this card, but a PSA 4, pop 1 of 1, none higher, gets 264 there. You have a Dennis Law PSA 10 that goes for 264 as well, along with a Neymar auto from 2022 that does 276. The Messi rookies continue to do pretty well. This PSA 5 of the 35 Mega Cracks goes for nearly $300. This is the Campio version. And then finally, to top page 3, we have a Merlin Beckham that goes on a 9.5 for $288. A pretty strong price. I mean, we've seen 9s in these auctions go for like, $30-$40 at times. This one obviously gets the gem mint grade and gets a gem mint price at nearly $300. Along with that, you have this Messi gold drip. I think that's what this is called. Yeah, okay. It's called gold drip. It's not in the title, but, goes for $300. Again, like to point out the watchers, I think that these sorts of not post-playing career, because he's obviously still playing, but this is post-Barca. He wasn't on Barca anymore. It's sort of a throwback card. Gets $300, which feels strong because, at the end of the day, I think this is almost a forgettable card in Messi's overall assortment of cards. He has a ton of items to choose from, and so how many people are going to look up a 2022 Topps FC Barcelona gold drip out of 15 purple? Probably not many, and I think that sort of shows by the watchers there. Along with that, we end out this page with the Jamal Musiala PSA 9 Kaboom going for $312. Then on page 2, a TAA starts us off, a PSA 9 Gold Chrome for $336. I was surprised to see this top sticker, Erling Haaland, doing such a good number, $336 for a PSA 10. I looked at the foosball auctions, and those have been between like $400 and $450 recently. And I don't think there was ever a time where the top sticker was anywhere close to the foosballs in similar grades. So this is seemingly held up fairly well compared to the foosballs, which is surprising, at least from my point of view. But at the same time, people are sort of liking tops more and more nowadays. I think from a sticker standpoint, personally, I like Panini a lot more, but interesting to note nonetheless. Next to it, we have another Lorati that does a decent number here, $348 for this player that I am not aware of. But of course, there's some people out there hunting. 14 watchers in pre-war Italy is a lot different than 14 watchers on a modern Messi card, just to point that out as well. Also seemingly, again, a good price on that Lorati. Above that, we have a Pele from the Anglo-American Gum release. A 1.5 does $372. We have a Pulisic out of 10. That says out of 10. That's an out of 50 card, which is interesting that they put out a ton on that. Nonetheless, it does a fair price. I think the last bin of one of these did near about 500, so it's a little lower. But obviously, you're going to get little lower numbers for auctions at the same time. Definitely a card I like. I do own it, so, highly biased. So it seems like an okay price on that one. Above that, a nice little selection here of some vintage. You got a Johan Cruyff and a 5 of the Vanderhoot that does $408 with an eye appeal sticker as well, top 30%. And you have a 58 Collinville Footer Gum. This is a really rare, not the most rare. I think that's the Ferrero Rocher, if memory serves me correct. I think that's the name of it, but this is the second most rare, as far as I understand, for Bobby Charlton rookies. This 3 goes for $432. Which doesn't seem like a crazy price. Seems relatively fair. There was a 5 on eBay that I feel like did $600 to $700 last year at some point in time, because I was watching that. So I do think that this 3 performed well compared to the 5, but also for such a rare card, although, very small. I'm not sure if it's a card. I would imagine maybe it's more of a sticker stock. I'm not quite sure. If you know, feel free to share. But a very minute release, obviously, you got to get the magnifying glass out and all that good stuff. But really rare, gets a decent number at $432 for Charlton. Along with that, another Pulisic here out of 10. This one's actually out of 10. Goes for $432 with the auto. Above that, you have this 59 Pele Edit Corpo Goleadores do Futebol. PSA 1 goes for $444. I feel like this is half of a Pele. I think there's another half in there somewhere, although maybe I'm lying. It looks like more of a team photo. I'm sort of imagining the one of him like as a sort of like bull matador. I think that's what I was confusing it for. Nonetheless, goes for $444 pop, 1 of 1, just 2 higher. Next to it, we have another Pele over here, the Crack Golasso card from 1965, and a 1 does $480. I did look up the Foosball Haaland. There you go, just for the proof that I was talking about. Best offer did $500, auction did $400, so, the top sticker doing pretty well. As for this Pele, depends what comp you want to take. If you look at this last one, it did $725, but this was a pretty high price. This same exact card actually was bought a year prior on PWCC for $198, so a nice little flip there from $200 to $725. This one does a lighter price, but as always, you expect that on auctions. And again, compared to this one back here and some other ones that you can see, seems like a decent price. Pre-boom, notably, a 1 did $94, and that's a pretty nice looking one. Obviously, you have a little bit of a crease there, but still good colors. And a 6 did $360. So from pre-boom, doing pretty good, which on Pele sometimes is the case, sometimes not. So, that card seems to be doing pretty well overall. Above that, you got a 36 Dix Orsi that does $492 and a PSA 6 pop, 1 of 2, 1 higher. We'll see another one later on in the auction, different player, but same release. Next to it, you have your choice here between a couple Messis, sort of the fake rookie that was labeled as a rookie for a long time, the 2006 UK Traditions in a 10. Versus a PSA 8 rookie that goes for $516. Both the same price. And again, notably looking at watchers, I think that this is a good indicator of probably demand for sure. Obviously, supply is another factor that you have to take into account, but I do think that between these two, I take the Mega Cracks every single day of the week, personally. Above that, stained glass Lamine Yamal, $564. You have the Mbappe 9.5 for $564 as well, which is a super low price. Again, in a world where Mbappe only has one rookie card, man, I take this every single day of the week over the Lamine Yamal. Again, me personally. This is a PSA 6. I didn't even notice that the first go around. Oh my lord. That is a rough look on that one. I guess probably explains the price. It seemed kind of low for stained glass, which I believe is a case hit. So you got a 2003 Mega Cracks Cristiano Ronaldo question mark. PSA 10 goes for $588. I think that this is probably a better buy than the Messi one we'll see later. At least from my understanding, I believe that Ronaldo's in all of these packs, or at least potentially could be. Messi, on the other hand, there's 4 different boxes. He's only in one of the boxes. I don't think you can really tell just by the packs, so it's a lot more of a gamble, and maybe one that, the people that submitted probably know he's not in. Rather with the Cristiano Ronaldo, I do believe he's in all of them. Could be wrong. If I am, again, feel free to let me know. Didn't win this one, not that I took too big of a stab at it. This was around $300 going into extended bidding, and I was like, well, why not? A Zlatan 1 of 1, really hard to come by. Honestly, if you even go on eBay and look for these Immaculates, they're hard to find. There's only a couple of them, so I thought I'd take a stab. I still think that that's a decent price if you're trying to get Zlatan 1 of 1 stuff, or just really rare Zlatans, because they do not come up all that often, so seems like a decent price there, at least from my point of view. A 39 Dixie Dean African Tobacco World of Sport goes for $750 and a PSA 5. Fun to see an African release, as you don't see many of those in these auctions at all. A 2022 Kylian Mbappe Auto goes for $780 and a PSA 10, and then we finish out the row here with a couple rarities. This is a 1958 Olympiad Chewing Gum Copa with the white sleeves, goes for $840 and a PSA 2 with an MK designation. Only other sale we can find is a 1.5 that did $690. Typically, people say if you have a qualifier, I can remember the word this week for it, but yeah, if you have a qualifier, typically you take off 2 grades. So a PSA 2 is kind of like an authentic, and an authentic doing more than a PSA 1.5 is a really, really good price on that one, at least comparatively. Of course, you have to look into it, see how big of a deal the MK is, if it's really all that prevalent. You got to do your own research there. Next to it, we have the Thierry Henry rookie, the 96 Russian version. This notably doesn't have Russian in the title, which I think is quite the mistake there, but still gets a good price. Still, the bidders are doing their due diligence, so they figured it out. But in terms of pricing, this is nearly, well, I guess not nearly double, but it's definitely a good premium over any other sale that's been out there. As far as the last one, a PSA 4 sold for $480. This one, 7-8 months later, does close to $850. So pretty good price increase there. Also the highest grade to ever sell, so there's that as well. And then finally, a 2004 Campio Messi Mega Cracks in an 8 does a $900, which is a super strong price. I looked up this graph, and yeah, I mean, up 46%. Also notably, not the highest, but nearly the highest sale over the last 2 years, and on an auction. Really, really good sign for the Messi rookie market, I would say. And generally speaking, still only a pop 95. I mean, obviously this is just an 8. There's 9s, there's 10s, there's 7s, there's yada yada. There's also Campione compared to Campio, this, that, and the other. But, I mean, an auction price doing nearly the highest and being a significant premium over a lot of the other lower sales we've seen, really, really good sign for the Messi rookies. As someone that followed Messi rookies pretty heavily during the boom, just to see how they were doing, For buy it nows, there would always be like 400 to 500 listed at basically all times. And now when you go on over to eBay, I think it's closer to like 200, maybe 250. So it's about half, which I think is pretty prevalent and could be a good reason why these are sort of ticking back up, along with things in general in soccer just doing a lot better nowadays. But so it seems like we've sort of turned a corner, but you never really know for sure. I guess only time will tell. We start off page one here with a couple $1,000 listings. We have the Titularis team photo that goes for $930, a couple select Ronaldo's here for $1,000. Same price on both the BGS 9, PSA 9 with no auto grades. Interesting to see. It's also out of 35, so kind of crazy that you get two in the same auction block. I think that these probably, one of them would be my choice compared to the ones above it. You got a couple Messi, you got a Messi up here, this gold lightning strike that does 1,000, PSA 10, but you have a couple Ronaldos as well, 2020 Euro and 2022. Granted, these are PSA 10s, these are 9s. Me personally, I'd rather have an out of 35 Euro winning year than a 2020 non-numbered, but hey, to each their own. Above that, you have the Dix that I was talking about earlier, a De Gea rookie. I can't speak to it. I would tread with caution, but gets a good price here with $1,100 for a PSA 6 Pop 104 none higher of the 36 Dix. Along with that, 2023 Finest Lamine Yamal PSA 10 auto goes for $1,100 as well. And finally, an Antoine Griezmann that goes for $1,200, a 1 of 1 from 2021 Finest. Again, me personally, I sort of think just generally, I mentioned it last week, I think Antoine Griezmann's maybe a little overhyped. I take the Zlatan plus $500 if I had the option. Now, to be fair, Superfractor sort of its own category. I don't think many people would take a Platinum Immaculate 1 of 1 compared to a Superfractor 1 of 1. But at the same time, Zlatan barely has any options in terms of 1-on-1s, while Antoine Griezmann has quite a lot more. So I found that interesting, at least. PSA 9 as well, which is, somewhat notable for 1-of-1s. Not the biggest of deals for sure, but, something to think about. This PSA 9 Messi, the 89, goes for $1,200, and this, of course, usually is the lowest price of the bunch in terms of his Mega Cracks team set rookies, as it is one of the easier ones to grade. In terms of pricing, again, one of the highest prices we see. Of course, there are some higher prices here, $1,350. You got a $1,700, which seems super, super strong. But, there's some $1,300s, some $1,500s, some $1,200s. But I would say that this is probably one of, if not the highest auction prices amongst all of these. Because as you can see, most of them are not selling that high. But as of late, now we did have one sale here at $723. But other than that, they've basically all been 1,000 plus since September of last year. So again, interesting to note, up 42% over the last couple years. Here's the Mega Cracks Messi pack that I was talking about, or, quote unquote Messi pack, potentially. PSA 10 goes for $1,300, or at least near about that. And as I mentioned before, there's 4 different Messi boxes. I think he's in the 3rd edition. As far as I'm aware, you can only tell based off of I think it's the case. I could be wrong on that. Maybe it's the box, but I think it's the case of which they come out of. Like, you need a full case to be able to tell which edition it is, which makes it so hard to think that, this might have a Messi card in it. But if you're a pack collector, I could see that making sense. Lamine Yamal rookie out of 30 tie-dye goes for $1,300 in a PSA 10. Along with that, you have a treble Kylian Mbappe for $1,500 out of 75. There was one comp on a BGS 9, did $100 less last year, so a little bit of a bump on that. Titularis Pele in a 2.5 does $1,560, which seems like an okay price. There's been some 4s lately that have done $2,000 to like $2,500, $2,800 maybe, so a 2.5 doing $1,560 doesn't seem like a bad price. To be fair, it does look pretty well centered. Also looks like it has decent registration, so that's going for it. Then you have a 2015 Select Orange Messi that goes for $1,650 with the sticker auto. Above that, this row is an interesting one for sure. You have a 1931 Piola rookie. Again, don't quote me on the Piola rookies quote, fanatics, and be mad at them if they got this wrong, but this is obviously a super, super strong price for a Piola, $1,710, and the only one ever to sell before this was the same exact copy that sold for $960 a year and some change ago, so quite the improvement there on the price. If we just did Piola in general, I do wonder where this would rank in terms of pricing. This is actually, the highest priced Piola ever. So I would take their word, probably a rookie. Quite the vintage release there. Definitely has some wear and tear to it, and definitely makes you feel as if it's vintage for sure. This one, a little wear and tear as well. PSA 6 on this 1999 Zidane Merlin Ruby that goes for $1,740 out of 100. As we know, or maybe if you don't know, the 1990s barely have any numbered cards when it comes to soccer, and the Merlin Rubies are sort of a staple of the numbered cards that do exist. This goes for $1,740. There's barely been any of them to sell. The only one ever went for $525 a couple years ago in a PSA 8 grade. So whoever snagged this one off of My Slabs, congratulations. This comp makes you look like an absolute genius. Presumably an 8 would be a few grand, maybe, 3 to 5, at least compared to this comp. Now, what would this have done on auction at the time? I don't know. Would it have gone more or less? Hard to tell. I do know that rubies, especially in other sports, have done a huge number since a couple years ago. They've definitely grown a lot. I know baseball numbered stuff has done a lot. Basketball, of course, sort of leading the way. Football's followed along. And so soccer seemingly doing it as well. There are lesser players from these Merlin sets that do like 500 to 1,000 pretty consistently. Now, sometimes in better grade, but I can definitely see why the Zidane lands here in an amazing card. And me personally, as someone that doesn't have much affinity for Piola, I would probably take that as my choice in this row of the bunch. Also, 66 watchers speaks to the amount of people willing to go after this, or at least willing to watch. Along with that, of course, leading this row, you have the Kaboom Lamine Yamal. So to each their own. Maybe that's where you want to go with the 1830 on that one. Pop 1 of 0, 1 higher. Nice. So that doesn't make any sense to me, but okay. Above that row, we have a 2019 Erling Haaland sticker auto paired with a Cristiano Ronaldo 2020 Euro Mosaic 1 of 1 black circles. Does 2,600. Sort of surprised of a 1 of 1 Cristiano Ronaldo doing that light, especially with an auto. I also find it interesting that his newer autos look so clean. I don't know what to make of it. Maybe he's just putting more effort in. I hope he is. But this one looks super, super clean comparatively like 2016. I mean, these are sort of off sticker, a little messier. Even some of these, this 2022 again sort of matches the cleanliness of the other one that we were looking at. Really, really nice. Although I guess they have some variation as well when you do look at it. This one seems to go up to the right a little bit more. Meanwhile, this one seems to go far to the right a bit more. But yeah, quite the variation. I mean, compared to this 2020 that looks, a little rougher. But again, sort of surprised that a 1 of 1 only does 2,600. Now it is black circles. I'd imagine there's a true black. Could be totally wrong on that, but just throwing it out there. 95 watchers here on this BGS 871 bis that goes for 4,800. It's around where they've been, it feels like, plus or minus 5,000. You get what I'm saying. A little bit above, a little bit below. This is within the range of what you'd expect. And then to top the list this week, we got a couple Messis and a Puskás at the very, very top there. So we have a 2021 1 of 1 patch. This is a Jumpman, sort of has a game-worn logo of Michael Jordan, of course. The Jumpman icon is based off him, and they did sponsor PSG during this time. So PSA 8 goes for 5,100. I do believe that's game worn, as it was talked about in a Stacking Slabs podcast, which is kind of a basketball football podcast for the most part. They talked about this as one of the guys was auctioning it with his consignment company and whatnot. So I think that might have been why it actually did a little bit of a boost over the last sale. This actually had sold in 2022 for 4,000 and goes for 5,000 this time, which is interesting because over that same time, this patch was bought for 6,400 with the top half of the PSG logo, and then just a couple years later sold for 4,000. So one of them dropped 2,300. Meanwhile, the other one goes up 1,000. Could be due to some influence. Maybe more people care about the Jumpman patch, but I don't know. I mean, that's sort of a basketball thing, so maybe it attracts cross-sport collectors. I could definitely see that, and that's probably why it does a little bit of a boost over the last sale. This 2022 Eminence actually does a little bit of a boost as well, quite a bit of a boost. In terms of comps on this one, the last out of 10, the only other one that we have comped here, did 3,700, so almost as double of that one, and does nearly the same price as an out of 5 that went ungolden last year. So super strong sale for that Eminence card. I believe that's number 9 out of 10, if I am correct. Could be wrong here. Yeah, 9 out of 10, so not jersey number. That obviously would play a factor. And then finally, a 1946 Puskás. This is the Nanina release. His rookie in a PSA 4 does 1,300. I say 1,300, I mean 13,200. If we look at the copy, these are hand cut, and it doesn't seem like the cleanest of cuts. Now, granted, on the bottom, I mean, you can't really cut it anymore unless you're going to cut off some of the sticker itself, so not the cleanest cut on the bottom. The left's a little sort of jagged up towards the top. Generally looks pretty good. The registration isn't horrible. The colors are pretty good as well. I'm guessing the back, yeah, not a whole lot going on there. But these are super hard to come by. You don't see them come up really at all. Although I say that, there's actually 2 that I believe are on Golden Elite. So that'll be interesting. There actually was a really good Golden Elite that ended just a few days ago. If you guys want me to cover it, let me know. I tried to go and maybe cover it, but I couldn't sort by soccer only. Hopefully they fix that. I hate the Golden site, which is honestly why I don't really talk about it at all. If they had a nice, easy-to-use site like Fanatics did, I'd probably go over there a bit more and, talk about it, but it's just super hard to navigate. Nonetheless, if you guys care that much and really want me to do it, I will give it a go. As for the comps of this Puskás, if we go ahead and look, the last 7 did 18,000, so this seems like a really strong sale comparatively. Now, I will say, this 7 probably isn't a great 7. If you look at the red along his head here, not great registration, really far off. If you look at this 7 comparatively, that did 51,000 before, you can see a little bit of red, but not as much. A lot better registration. Probably even better colors on this one. The other one was a lot brighter, but I talk about this a lot. I think it's just the golden scans. I think the golden team, I would assume they know what they're doing, but they might not. And if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, me personally, I think they absolutely jack up the brightness on this stuff. Because if you look at the outside of the slab, this isn't what a PSA slab normally looks like. This Fanatics one is what these slabs normally look like, where it's just sort of a plasticky color. I mean, these are like bright white along the edges, which to me sort of says there might be some sort of photo alteration that goes on here. Me personally, not a fan of it, but, I guess it depends how you want to look at this comp. If you compare to this authentic copy that had sold back during the boom, not a great price. That only went for $13,000. Meanwhile, this one does $13,000 in PSA 4, but again, if you compare to this PSA 7, seems like a good sale. So, higher, lower, it's hard to tell. Seems like it's in the ballpark of where it should be, and we'll have more comparable sales to look at here in another month or so. But that does it for this weekly 159 in total. I think it's 102 for us. I could be wrong on that. But looking at next week here, we got a couple 71 bisses, a 9.5 and a PSA 8. The 9.5 already at 20.5 thousand. We have an Mbappe Gold BGS 9.5 that does 4,900, at least so far. That is a quad gem with all 9.5 grades. Beneath that, another Messi Eminence Auto from 2022. You got a Ronaldo rookie sticker and a PSA 7 along with another 71 bis. A Gold Mbappe, a PSA 6 Zidane, a PSA 7 Gerd Muller. Quite a few goodies there at the top of the list. A 1/1 Ronaldo along with some Pele, Messi rookies, all that good stuff. So yeah, should be another good weekly. Hopefully you're excited. I know I am. As always, if you did enjoy this episode, do make sure to leave a like. Again, I'd appreciate it greatly. Helps me, helps the channel. If you want to see more videos like this, as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. That's usually the last thing I say, but I'll also say, if there was anything you thought that sold high or low, or maybe something you snagged, would love to hear about it and comment down below. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.